The spoon clinked against the plate. Victoria flinched. Lately she flinched at any sharp sound. 52, and her nerves were like a hunted animal's. She was setting the table when she heard the front door slam. Two voices, a man's and a woman's. Gerald and his mother, together. That was odd. Her mother-in-law usually gave a week's notice of visits, demanding a special menu and a deep clean. And now, without a call. On an ordinary Tuesday, Victoria wiped her hands on her apron and went into the hall. Gerald stood by the mirror, adjusting his tie. 54, still handsomely gray at the temples, an expensive suit, a £500,000 watch. He didn't even glance at his wife. Zenaida, his mother, was taking off her shoes, leaning on a small chest of drawers. 76, but her back was as straight as a guardsman's. A cream dress, a string of pearls around her neck. She saw Victoria, and her lips curved into a familiar sneer. "Oh, our housekeeper greets us. At least she's doing something useful." Victoria remained silent. Over 25 years, she had learned to be silent so profoundly that it had become her second skin. "Dinner's ready." Gerald finally looked at her. His gaze was cold, appraising. "Yes, I've laid it in the dining room, set it up in the study. We need to talk." She carried the plates into her husband's study. Her hands didn't tremble. She had long unlearned how to show what she felt. But inside, something dark was growing, a premonition. Gerald sat at the head of the table, his mother-in-law to his right. Victoria was motioned to a chair by the door, like a servant. "Sit down, darling." Gerald uttered the word as if spitting it out. "This will be a serious conversation." Victoria sat, her hands folded in her lap. "I want a divorce." 3 words. 3 simple words that cut the air in half. "Did you hear me?" Gerald frowned. He expected tears, screams, hysterics, but his wife remained silent. "I said divorce. We are getting a divorce." "Finally!" Zenaida leaned back in her chair. 25 years I've waited for this day. 25 years I've watched this empty shell drain my son." "Mother!" Gerald raised a hand. "Let me explain. Explain, my son. Explain to this gray mouse that her time is up." Gerald stood, paced the study, hands behind his back, chin raised. "Victoria, our marriage has long since become a formality. The children are grown. There's nothing left to hold on to. Did you ask the children? Eleanor is on my side. Arthur will understand in time. Now, to the practical side." Gerald pulled a folder with a embossed law firm logo from his briefcase. "I've prepared the documents. Everything's fair, everything's legal." He placed the folder in front of Victoria. "Open it, darling. Don't be afraid." Zenaida giggled. Victoria opened the folder. First page, agreement on the division of property. The flat they had lived in for 20 years was registered in Zenaida's name. Since last year, the country house was in the name of a certain Karina Hughes. The business, a chain of car repair shops, was offshore. 3 cars were registered to his mother and the same Karina. Bank accounts, 0 in joint funds. She read to the end and closed the folder. "Who is Karina Hughes? That's none of your business." "His woman," Zenaida said with relish. "Clever, beautiful, young. Not like you, a parasite. She makes my son happy. For 3 years now." 3 years, Victoria remembered. 3 years ago, Gerald started working late. 3 years ago, the evening gym sessions started. "So, you want me to sign this and leave empty-handed?" "Don't dramatize," Gerald winced. "I'll give you some money for the time being. You can rent a flat." "You used to do something before we married? Something clerical?" "I worked in the civil service." "Well, there you go. You can go back to shuffling papers." Zenaida approached Victoria, leaned in. "Listen to me carefully, you empty shell. For 25 years you lived in my house, ate my bread, and what did you give in return? Nothing. A gray mouse who can only make soup and iron shirts." "Your house?" Victoria asked quietly. "This flat was bought with my parents' inheritance." "What?" Zenaida straightened up. "My parents' flat in the city center. I sold it and invested the money in Gerald's business 23 years ago." Silence. Gerald was the first to recover. "That was joint money. Family money. You signed all the papers yourself. I signed a joint investment agreement. Not a gift. What's the difference?" Zenaida waved a hand. 20 years have passed. The statute of limitations has expired. Not for fraud. The word hung in the air. Gerald paled. What are you allowing yourself? I know what I'm talking about. But you've been a housewife for 25 years. You don't know how the world works. You can barely use a computer. Just then, the door opened. Eleanor, 24, a spitting image of her father. What's going on here? You're shouting so loudly. Daughter, we were just telling your mother about the divorce. Eleanor entered. She glanced at her mother. And how did she take it? Badly, Zenaida sneered. She's making threats. Mom, Eleanor turned to Victoria. Don't make a scene. Dad's right. You've been strangers for ages. And don't threaten. It's ridiculous. You can't do anything, Mom. 25 years in the kitchen. Is that all you're capable of? Her daughter's words hurt the most. The door opened again. Arthur, 20, tall and thin. I heard everything from the corridor. He walked through the room, stood beside his mother. I'm with Mum, if anyone's interested. Don't be foolish, Gerald frowned. You're a boy. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. For 20 years I've heard Grandma call Mum a parasite. I've seen you give her money for groceries, with a list and a report. Arthur, stop dramatizing. Eleanor rolled her eyes. Enough! Gerald slammed his palm on the table. Victoria, we'll continue this later. Either you sign the papers voluntarily, or we go to court, and then you'll get nothing. I have the best solicitors. He picked up his briefcase. Let's go, Mother. Zenaida, passing Victoria, paused. You know what's funny, you empty shell? You could have lived decently if you hadn't put on airs. But now my son will crush you, and I'll enjoy watching. They left. Eleanor followed, not even looking at her mother. Arthur remained. They sat in silence for about 5 minutes. Mum, Arthur knelt beside her. Are you all right? I'm fine, darling. Really? Victoria looked at her son long and carefully. Arthur, can you keep a secret? What? A secret. Information you can't tell anyone. He nodded. Then listen. Your father and grandmother think I'm nobody. A gray mouse. An uneducated housewife. Mum, just listen. They think that because I let them think that. For 25 years I played a role. So well that I even forgot who I really was. Arthur waited. Before I married, I worked as a detective inspector for serious crimes. Silence. What, Mum? Are you serious? Detective Inspector Victoria Davies. CID. My case clearance rate was 92%. But why did you leave? Victoria turned to the window. I lost a child. Your older brother or sister. A miscarriage at 5 months. Grandma said it was because of my work, that I was to blame. Proper women don't run around mortuaries when they're expecting a child. That's not true. I know that now. But back then, I believed it. When I got pregnant again, with you, Grandma gave me an ultimatum. Either work or the baby. And you chose me? Yes. Arthur hugged her tightly. Mom, do you understand what this means? You know how the system works? How to collect evidence? I do. Then why did you put up with it for 25 years? Because I forgot who I was. Every day they told me I was nobody. And I believed it. She turned away. But today, something changed. When your father laid out those papers, when I saw he'd transferred everything to his mother and his mistress, I felt anger. The same anger I felt when I was on a criminal's trail. And what will you do? First, I'll find something. Come on. They went up to the attic. Old things, suitcases, boxes. Help me get the gray box labeled documents. Arthur brought down the box. Victoria opened it, her hands trembling slightly. Service ID. Red cover. Detective Inspector Victoria Davies. Photo. Young, in uniform, with a sharp gaze. Awards, commendations, and one photo, an awards ceremony. She was shaking hands with a young man in a prosecutor's uniform. Victoria looked at the picture for a long time. Who's that? Arthur asked. Chief Prosecutor Anthony Peterson. Then a young prosecutor handling the Krivosheev corruption case. A high-ranking official taking millions in bribes. Everyone knew. No one could prove it. But I did. I found witnesses, documents. Peterson won thanks to my evidence. That case made his career. Where is he now? Presiding judge of the county court. I saw him on TV. Arthur whistled. You know a judge? I knew him 25 years ago. I don't know if he remembers. She closed the box, but something had changed in her face, her posture. Arthur, I need your help. Anything. You're good with computers, databases? Yes. Your father thinks I know nothing about his affairs. He's wrong. For 25 years I've lived in this house. I've seen documents, heard conversations, memorized. You spied on him? No, I observed. A detective's habit. Arthur looked at his mother with a new expression. Mum, you sound like a completely different person right now. I am a different person, the one I was before I let them break me. Now that person is waking up. She looked out the window at the night city, the car lights. Your father wants a war. He'll get one. That night, she didn't sleep, sitting in the armchair by the window, thinking about the 25 years, about how she had gradually transformed from a detective inspector into a parasite. You are to blame for the child's death, and she believed it. Your place is at home, and she stayed. You can't do anything, and she stopped trying. But now she felt something new. Not despair, but fury. A cold, calculating fury of a detective who knows the criminal has been caught. She took out her phone. She had kept one number all these years. Tamara Miller. They had once worked together. Tamara was 5 years older, taught her the tricks of detective work. 3 in the morning. Calling was insane. But she knew Tamara. Ring. Another ring. Hello? A sleepy voice. Tamara? It's Victoria. Davies. A pause. Victoria? You disappeared 25 years ago. What happened? I need help. You're the only person I can turn to. Silence. Then a sigh. Tell me. Tell me everything. And Victoria told her. In the morning, she rose with clear plans. First, meet Tamara. Second, study the documents. Third, talk to Arthur. Start gathering information. She showered, looked in the mirror. For the first time in many years, she saw herself. Not a shadow. Not Gerald's wife. But herself. Older. Wrinkles. Gray hair. But the same gaze. Sharp. A detective's gaze. Hello, Victoria, she said to her reflection. Long time no see. Downstairs, Arthur was making coffee. Mum, I found something. What? Dad's cloud storage password. He uses his birth date everywhere. It works. Victoria sat down. You broke into his cloud? Not yet. I waited for you. It could have everything. Correspondence, documents. And that would be illegally obtained information. It won't be accepted in court. Arthur's face fell. Then why? Because we need to know what to look for. It's one thing to dig blindly. Another to know where the right folder is. She picked up her mug. We won't use this as evidence, but we'll find out where to look for the real thing. Do you understand the difference? Arthur nodded. Clever. Astute. That's how I worked 25 years ago. That's how I'll work now. She put down her mug. First, I need to meet someone. I'll be back by evening. Don't tell your father. He hasn't called, and he won't. He's sure I'm sitting at home crying. Let him think that. At the threshold, Victoria stopped, looked at the 500 square meter mansion, a house where she had been a stranger for 25 years. Soon, everything would change, she said softly, and walked towards the bus stop. In the evening, she returned with a clear head. Tamara, now an important official, had listened and nodded. A classic scheme. But the evidence needs to be ironclad. Arthur sat at the computer, pale and agitated. Mum, I found something. In Dad's cloud. You'd better see this. Correspondence. Gerald and Karina. Hundreds of messages over 3 years. Soon I'll strip the fool bare. She won't even realize. My mother will help. She hates Victoria. When it's over, we'll get married. You'll live in the country house like a queen. And photos. Gerald and a young woman on a beach, in a restaurant. Victoria read, and her last illusions crumbled. There was no marriage. There was a lie. 25 years of lies. Mum, Arthur touched her shoulder. Print everything, every message, but you said it was illegal. For court, yes, illegal, but there are other ways. She turned away, looked out the window. He wants a war. He'll get one, and he has no idea who he's messing with. She looked at her reflection in the dark glass. You want a war? You'll get a war. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria lived a double life. For her husband and mother-in-law, she remained the same quiet, broken, crushed woman. She made breakfasts, cleaned the house, lowered her eyes at every insult. "Look how quiet she is," Zenaida would tell her son on the phone. Victoria heard through the slightly ajar door. "She understands her place. She'll sign everything without a fuss." Gerald came home late, smelling of strange perfume, throwing his jacket onto the armchair without even looking at his wife. "Are the papers ready?" he would ask indifferently. "The solicitor is waiting. I need time," Victoria would reply. "To go through them." "What's there to go through? Just sign and be free." She would hesitate, lower her eyes, play the part, but at night, she worked. Tamra proved to be an invaluable ally. Her connections within government agencies opened doors that were firmly closed to ordinary people. "I've checked your husband," she said at their second meeting. They sat in a small cafe on the outskirts of town, away from familiar eyes. An interesting picture is emerging. "Tell me." His business, the chain of car repair shops, officially brings in £12 million a year, but according to my data, the real turnover is 3 times higher. He hides the difference through shell companies. Tax evasion. Exactly. That's the first thing. Second, the country house, which is registered to his mistress. It was bought 3 years ago for £1.8 million. Karina Hughes's official income, she works as an administrator in a beauty salon, is £12,000 a month. How could she afford such a purchase? Victoria smirked. She couldn't. Right. This is called acquiring property through a proxy. If we prove that Gerald provided the money for the house, and I'm sure he did, the deal can be challenged. What else? Tamra opened a folder, took out several sheets. Most interestingly, the flat you live in. It was re-registered to his mother a year ago, a deed of gift. But by law, such a transaction requires the spouse's consent. Your consent? I didn't give consent. I know, but there's a document with your signature at the land registry. Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. He forged my signature. Looks like it. And that's a criminal offense. Forgery of documents, 2 to 6 years. They looked at each other across the table. 2 women who had once caught criminals together. Now one of them was catching her own husband. "I need evidence," Victoria said. "Ironclad evidence. A signature expert. That's first. We need a sample of your genuine signature from that period and the forged document. The forged document is at the land registry. How do we get it? A request through a solicitor. Officially, by all rules." Victoria nodded, wrote it down in her notebook. What next? Financial documents. Bank statements showing the movement of money. Where did the funds for the house purchase come from? Where are the business profits going? That's harder. Harder, but possible. There are ways. Tamara leaned closer. "Victoria, I must warn you. What we're doing is on the edge. If your husband finds out prematurely, he won't." "Are you sure?" Victoria looked at her former colleague with a firm gaze. "For 25 years I've lived with this man. For 25 years I've observed, memorized, analyzed. I know him better than he knows himself. He's overconfident, he despises me, and that's what will ruin him." Tamara was silent, then nodded. "All right, then let's continue." The solicitor, Marina Davies, turned out to be exactly as Tamara had described her. Tough, professional, ruthless towards opponents. "I've studied your situation," she said at their first meeting. The office was small but cozy. Diplomas and commendations on the wall. Your husband made serious mistakes. What exactly? Most importantly, he underestimated you. He acted as if you would never resist. He didn't cover his tracks, didn't hide the evidence. Everything is on the surface. You just need to look at it correctly. Marina opened her laptop. "I requested documents from the land registry. Here's the consent to the flat's gift with your signature." She turned the screen towards Victoria. Victoria looked at the document for a long time. At the signature at the bottom of the page. "That's not my signature." "I thought so. See, the slant of the letters is different? And the flourish on the last letter? Yours goes up, but here it goes down. Do you specialize in handwriting analysis?" Marina smiled. "I've won 43 property division cases. In half of them, the husband's forged documents. I've learned to notice the details." She closed the laptop. "We need an official expert." I know a good specialist, independent, with an impeccable reputation. His conclusions are accepted in all courts. How much does it cost? £4,000. But this is your main trump card. If the expert confirms the forgery, the flat gift case will fall apart, and with it, your husband's entire scheme. Victoria took out an envelope, placed it on the table. Here's 5,000, 4,000 for the expert. The rest is an advance for your work. Marina took the envelope without counting. Where did the money come from, if you don't mind me asking? You said your husband controls all finances. For 25 years, I've been saving little by little from groceries, from household expenses, penny by penny, for a rainy day. The solicitor looked at her with respect. You're smarter than your husband thinks. I know. Arthur worked in parallel. His father's cloud storage turned out to be a goldmine of information. The correspondence with his mistress was just the tip of the iceberg. Mom, look! He showed her the laptop screen, bills for the house payment. All payments went from his father's card, but were framed as gifts to Karina. He didn't even try to hide it, save screenshots already. And I also found correspondence with his accountant. They're discussing how to hide part of the income from the tax authorities. Look, we'll run it through Dawn Limited. Nobody checks there. Victoria read the message. Her face remained impassive, but inside, a strange feeling grew. Not joy, no, rather a bitter satisfaction. The man who for 25 years had called her foolish and useless turned out to be a criminal himself. This cannot be used directly, she said. Illegally obtained evidence. I know, but now we know where to look. Right. Find everything that can be found legally. Public registers, open databases, information about Dawn Limited, its founders, connections. Arthur nodded. I'll do it. He paused. Mum, what will happen when all this is over, when Dad finds out the truth? Victoria turned to her son. He'll find out the truth in the courtroom, before the judge, the solicitors, the witnesses, and then it will be too late to change anything. I'm not talking about that. What about us, the family? She paused. Arthur, our family hasn't existed for a long time. Maybe it never existed. There was a house. There were people under one roof. But family is love, respect, support. We didn't have that. You and I did. Victoria smiled. For the first time in many days, genuinely. Yes, you and I did. And we will. The provocation came 10 days later. Victoria returned from the market, carrying bags of groceries. A police car stood by the house. Her heart skipped a beat, but she forced herself to walk calmly. A steady pace, with a straight back, as she had been taught in another life. In the living room, 2 police officers, a young one and an older one. Zenaida sat in an armchair, pressing a handkerchief to her eyes. Beside her, Gerald with a stone face. There she is! Her mother-in-law jumped up, pointing at Victoria. There's the thief! Hold her! Victoria stopped, put the bags on the floor. What's going on? The older officer stepped towards her. Madam, a report has been filed about the theft of jewelry. The homeowner claims you stole her valuables. What valuables? Gold earrings, an emerald ring, a bracelet, Zenaida stammered. Family heirlooms. My mother left them to me, and this parasite stole them. Victoria shifted her gaze to her husband. He was looking away. Gerald, she said calmly, are you going to let your mother accuse me of theft? He shrugged. Mother says they're missing. We need to sort it out. Sort it out? Victoria felt a cold fury rise within her. Fine, let's sort it out. She turned to the police. Officer, when did the alleged theft occur? The senior officer looked into his notebook. The complainant claims, this morning, between 9 and 11. This morning I was at the market from 9 until 11:30. I can show you receipts with the time of purchase. She took a stack of receipts from her bag, handed them to the officer. Here, 9:15, 9:42, 10:03, 10:31. 4 purchases in 4 different places with shop addresses. The officer examined the receipts, exchanged glances with his partner. That's not proof! Zenaida shrieked. She could have stolen them earlier, or during the night. If the theft occurred at night, Victoria said calmly, then why did you claim it was between 9 and 11? Her mother-in-law opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't remember exactly. Furthermore, Victoria continued, this house has a CCTV system installed. A camera in the hall, a camera in the living room, a camera on the first floor. All recordings are stored in the cloud. If you like, we can see who entered the rooms and when. Silence. Gerald abruptly turned to his mother. Mother, you said the cameras weren't working. They're not working. I checked. They are working, Victoria said. Arthur fixed them last week. He's very good with technology. Zenaida turned pale, then red, then pale again. Officer, Victoria addressed the policeman. I'm ready to provide the camera footage. I'm sure it will show who really took the jewelry, if anything is missing at all. The senior officer put away his notebook. I think we'll sort this out without that. He looked at Zenaida. Madam, are you sure about your statement? False accusation is a criminal offense. Her mother-in-law looked fearfully at her son. He remained silent. I think I made a mistake. Maybe I put them somewhere myself and forgot. So, you're withdrawing your statement? Yes, I'm withdrawing it. The police left. Zenaida rushed out, without even saying goodbye. Gerald remained, standing in the middle of the living room, looking at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. How did you know about the cameras? He finally asked. I live in this house, Gerald. 20 years I've lived here. Arthur fixed them. On purpose. Arthur is a clever boy. He can do many things. Her husband took a step towards her. What are you planning? Victoria raised her eyebrows. Nothing. Just defending myself against false accusations. That's not a crime, is it? Gerald looked at her for a long time, intently. Something new flickered in his eyes. Not disdain, but fear. You've changed, he said. No, I just stopped pretending. He left, slamming the door. Victoria was left alone. She walked to the window, her hands trembling. The adrenaline was slowly subsiding. Her phone vibrated. A message from Arthur. Saw it through the camera. You were brilliant, she smiled. Replied, this is just the beginning. The meeting with Eleanor happened 3 days later. Their daughter came in the evening when Gerald wasn't home. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes, her face drawn. Mum, she sat on the sofa, still in her coat. I need to tell you something. Tell me. I was wrong. Then, when Dad announced the divorce, I said terrible things. Victoria remained silent, waiting. All my life I thought, that Dad was a hero, that he worked, earned money, supported the family, and you just sat at home. Grandma always said, your mother is a useless lump, and I believed it. But now, Eleanor lowered her head. I saw his correspondence with Karina, not on purpose. He left his tablet open. It was there. She faltered. He called you an old hag, wrote that he couldn't wait to get rid of you, that he only tolerated you for 25 years for the sake of appearances. I know. You know? Arthur showed me a long time ago. Eleanor looked up. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have believed me then, when you were standing in your father's study and saying I couldn't do anything? Her daughter flinched. Mum, Eleanor, I don't blame you. You grew up in a house where I wasn't respected. You absorbed it from childhood. It's hard to think otherwise when you hear the same thing for 24 years, but it's not true. Arthur told me about who you were before you married, about being a detective, about some Krivoshev case, he told me. So why did you hide it? Why did you let them treat you like that? Victoria stood up, went to the window. Because I lost myself, Eleanor. When I had the miscarriage, you don't know about it, but before you, I was pregnant. Grandma blamed me, said it was because of my work, that I had killed my own child. She paused. I believed her. When I got pregnant again, with you, I left the force. I thought it would be temporary, but temporary turned into 25 years. Year after year they told me I was nobody, and I became nobody. Eleanor stood up, went to her mother, hugged her from behind. I'm sorry. Forgiveness is actions, Eleanor, not words. Then tell me what to do. I want to help. Victoria turned to her daughter. There's something. Your father trusts you. You can find out things he hides from me. Spy, observe, memorize. When he meets his solicitor, what does he say to Grandma? What plans are they making? Eleanor paused. That's difficult, Mum. He is my father after all. I understand. I'm not asking you to choose right now. Think about it. Her daughter nodded, headed for the door. At the threshold, she stopped. Mum, one more thing. Dad's nervous. After that incident with the police, he talked to Grandma. I heard him. He said, she knows something. A housewife can't act like that. Victoria smiled. Good. Let him be nervous. A week until the court hearing. The folder of evidence had grown to 150 pages. The handwriting expert's conclusion. The signature on the flat gift consent was forged. Probability, 98%. Bank statements showing transfers from Gerald's personal account to Karina Hughes's account. Total amount, £2. 2 million over 3 years. Documents for the registration of Dawn Limited. The founder was formally an outsider, but the actual beneficiary was Gerald. The tax evasion scheme. A copy of the contract for the sale of Victoria's parents' flat. The money went to develop her husband's business. We have everything, Marina said at their last meeting. A rock-solid case. He'll lose. And if his solicitor finds a loophole, he won't. I checked. They hired a Mr. Richard Smith. Expensive, overconfident, but not very clever. He's used to winning by intimidation and connections, powerless against evidence. Victoria nodded. There's one more thing. The case went to Judge Peterson, Anthony Peterson. The solicitor raised her eyebrows. The presiding judge of the county court? Interesting. He doesn't usually take family cases. 25 years ago, we worked together. I was a detective. He was a prosecutor. We worked on a corruption case together. Marina leaned back in her chair. Victoria Davies, you're full of surprises. I'm not going to use our old acquaintance. I just want you to know, I understand and appreciate your honesty. The solicitor stood up. See you in court. And remember, whatever they say, whatever they do, stay calm. That's your greatest strength. The night before the court hearing. Victoria sat in the dark, looking at an old photograph. A young woman in a detective's uniform, with a sharp gaze and a straight back. 25 years ago, she was strong, then she broke, then she rose again. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. She put the photograph away, looked at her reflection in the window pane. Ready? She asked herself. The reflection remained silent, but the gaze was firm. The phone rang. Tamara. Victoria? I checked. Your case is indeed with Peterson. He specifically requested it when he saw your name in the materials. He asked for it to be transferred to him. He remembers me? Looks like it. Is that good or bad? Victoria paused. It's fair. 25 years ago, I gave him a chance to build his career. Now he'll give me a chance to get my life back. Good luck, Victoria. You'll do it, I know. She put down the phone, looked out the window. The city was falling asleep, lights going out one by one. Tomorrow, a new life would begin, whatever it might be. Victoria got up and went to bed. For the first time in many weeks, calmly, without nightmares. In the morning, she woke with a clear head and firm resolve. The morning of the trial was cold and clear. Victoria woke at 5 a.m. before her alarm. She lay in the dark, listening to the city wake up. Today, everything would be decided. She got up, showered, stood in front of the wardrobe for a long time, chose a severe gray suit, the very one she had once worn in court as a detective. It had hung in the back of the wardrobe for 25 years, but it still fit perfectly. Victoria looked at herself in the mirror. Gray hair, wrinkles around her eyes, but her posture was straight, her gaze firm. She was herself again. There was a knock on the door. Mom, I'm ready. Shall we go together? Yes. They went downstairs. The kitchen was empty. Gerald had stayed at his mother's, preparing for his triumph. Nervous? Arthur asked in the car. No, not at all. Victoria looked out the window. The streets she had walked for 25 years flashed by. The shops where she bought groceries, the park where she walked with her children, the clinic, the school, the post office, the ordinary life of an ordinary woman. Today, that life would end. Another would begin. I've been waiting for this day, she finally said. Maybe I didn't realize it, but I was waiting. For 25 years. The courthouse building. Gray, monumental, with columns at the entrance. Victoria climbed the steps, pushed open the heavy door. In the corridor, they were already waiting. Gerald stood by the window, talking to his solicitor, a portly man in an expensive suit, and beside him, Zenaida in a black dress and pearls, as if for a funeral. Seeing Victoria, her mother-in-law smiled broadly. "Oh, look, Gerald, our gray mouse has come in some old rags, couldn't even dress properly for court." Gerald turned, glanced at his wife, and something flickered in his face. She looked different, not hunched, not fearful. A straight back, a raised chin, a calm gaze. "Victoria," he stepped towards her, "it's not too late to settle everything peacefully. Sign the papers and we'll part without a scandal. You don't understand what you're getting yourself into. I have the best solicitors. You'll lose and be left with nothing." Victoria looked at him for a long time, calmly. "We'll see." Marina approached her, composed, businesslike. "Ready?" "Yes." "Then let's go. The hearing is in 10 minutes. They moved towards the courtroom. Zenaida called out after them, "Ha ha! We'll strip her bare now. We'll see how this empty shell sings when she's left on the street." Victoria didn't turn around. The courtroom. Wooden benches. The national emblem on the wall. The judge's bench on a raised platform. Victoria sat on the left, next to her solicitor. Arthur sat behind her in the public gallery. A minute later, Eleanor entered quietly, unnoticed, and sat next to her brother. On the right, Gerald and his solicitor were seated. Zenaida was in the front row of spectators, beaming with anticipation. All rise, court is in session. Everyone stood. The door behind the judge's bench opened. A man in his 60s entered, tall, gray-haired, with attentive eyes behind spectacles, black robes, a stern face. Judge Anthony Peterson. He sat down, arranged his papers, looked up at the room, and froze. His gaze stopped on Victoria. 1 second, 2, 3. "Victoria Davies," he said quietly. "Is that you?" Silence hung in the air. Gerald looked at his wife in confusion, then at the judge. "Excuse me?" Peterson took off his glasses, wiped them. You worked as a detective, didn't you? The Krivoshev case, 1998. It was thanks to you that I then..." He broke off, put his glasses back on. Gerald's solicitor jumped up. "Your Honor, I demand a recusal." Obvious conflict of interest for the judge. Peterson turned to him. His gaze became cold, official. "On what grounds? You just admitted a personal acquaintance with the respondent." "A professional acquaintance of 25 years ago." Peterson's voice was even. "We haven't seen each other in a quarter of a century, haven't kept in touch, have no common interests. According to Article 16 of the Civil Procedure Rules, this is not grounds for recusal." Motion denied. "Sit down." The solicitor sat down, turning purple. Gerald leaned in, whispered something to him. The solicitor spread his hands. Zenaida stopped smiling. "The court is hearing the case for the dissolution of marriage and the division of jointly acquired property," Peterson continued. "Plaintiff, Gerald Smith. Respondent, Victoria Smith. Parties, please identify yourselves." The procedure continued in due course. Gerald's solicitor spoke at length and elaborately about the husband's contribution to the family's well-being, about sacrifices for the family, and the wife's ingratitude. "My client supported his family for 25 years, he declared. Built a business, earned money. The respondent did not work all this time, brought in no income, existed solely at her husband's expense. In fairness, she is not entitled to half the property." Victoria listened silently. Her face remained impassive. Finally, the solicitor finished. Peterson turned to her. The respondent's turn. Victoria stood up, adjusted her jacket. Her voice was steady, clear, as she had spoken during interrogations many years ago. "Your Honor, the plaintiff's representative claims that I did not contribute to the family's well-being." "That is a lie," Gerald snorted. Zenaida scoffed. "I have proof," Victoria continued. "I request it be admitted as evidence." Marina stood up, handed the secretary a thick folder. Document number 1. Victoria spoke without looking at the papers. "The contract for the sale of the flat at Garden Street, number 15. The flat belonged to my parents and was inherited by me." It was sold 23 years ago for a sum equivalent to today's £1.8 million. She paused. Document number 2. A bank statement showing the transfer of these funds to the account of Gerald's garage, my husband's business. Date: 1 month after the flat was sold. Gerald paled. Document number 3. Company formation documents. My name does not appear in them, although it was my money that became the initial capital. My husband convinced me that it would be more reliable that way. That was common family money, Gerald exclaimed. Peterson struck the gavel. Plaintiff, you will have your say later. Continue, Victoria Davies. She nodded. 23 years ago, I invested my inheritance in my husband's business. In return, I received no share in the company, no signing rights, no access to accounts. All this time, I was considered a housewife, but it was my money that created the foundation of the family's wealth. Victoria took out the next document. Now about the current situation. A year ago, the flat we live in was re-registered to the plaintiff's mother, Zenaida Smith. A deed of gift. Such a transaction requires the spouse's consent. Here is a document with my supposed signature. She placed the sheet on the table. And here is the conclusion of the handwriting expert, an independent specialist with 20 years of experience. Conclusion: the signature is forged. Probability: 98%. The hall buzzed. Zenaida clutched the back of the bench. That's a lie, she screamed. She signed it herself. I saw her. Spectators, observe silence. Peterson struck the gavel again. One more outburst and I will remove you from the courtroom. Her mother-in-law fell silent, but her eyes flashed with lightning. Victoria continued. Forgery of a signature on an official document. A criminal offense. Article 327 of the Criminal Code. I reserve the right to file a separate complaint. She took the next sheet. Furthermore, the country house, worth £1.8 million. Registered to Miss Karina Hughes. Miss Hughes's official income is £12,000 a month. She could not have afforded such a purchase. Victoria placed bank statements on the table. Here are transfers from the plaintiff's personal account to Miss Hughes's account, a total of £2.2 million over 3 years. The house was effectively bought with the husband's money and is jointly acquired property, illegally removed from the family. Gerald jumped up. Where did you get these documents? You spied on me. Sit down, Peterson roared. Last warning. The solicitor tugged Gerald's sleeve. He sat down, but his hands were trembling. Victoria concluded. And finally, the plaintiff's business. The chain of car repair shops officially brings in £1.2 million a year. However, analysis of financial flows shows that the real turnover is significantly higher. Part of the income is diverted through a shell company, Dawn Limited. This is tax evasion and concealment of jointly acquired property. She closed the folder. Your Honor, I request that the deed of gift for the flat be declared invalid on the grounds of a forged signature, that the arrangement of the country house in the name of a third party be declared a sham transaction. I request that the said property be included in the division and that my initial contribution to the family business be taken into account. Victoria sat down. Silence. Peterson leafed through the documents. His face showed nothing. Finally, he looked up. Plaintiff, your response. Gerald stood. He no longer looked self-assured. His face was gray. His hands were trembling. This is slander. She set it all up, hired some experts, got some papers. The documents were obtained legally, Marina interjected. Bank statements by court order, expert analysis by an accredited laboratory. Everything was done correctly. Gerald's solicitor jumped up. Your Honor, we request a recess to review the materials. Denied. The materials were provided to the plaintiff's side 3 days ago. Sufficient time for review. Do you have anything to object to on the merits? The solicitor opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Gerald. He was silent. He looked at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. Victoria? He said hoarsely. How could you? 25 years, she replied calmly. 25 years I observed, memorized, analyzed. You thought I was a foolish housewife. You were wrong. But you never. I was a detective, Gerald, for serious crimes. A 92% clearance rate. You married a professional. And for 25 years you didn't even suspect it. Zenaida jumped up. Lies! She's lying! She was some kind of secretary. I know for sure. Remove her from the courtroom, Peterson snapped at the bailiff. 2 guards approached his mother-in-law. She clung to the bench. Don't you dare touch me. I'm the plaintiff's mother. I have a right to be here. You are disrupting the proceedings. Remove her. Zenaida was led out by the arms. Her screams echoed from the corridor for a long time. Peterson waited until silence returned. The court will retire to consider its decision. The recess lasted 40 minutes. Victoria sat motionless, staring ahead. Marina was saying something, but the words didn't register. Arthur came from behind, put a hand on her shoulder. Mum, you were brilliant. She covered his hand with hers. Eleanor sat a little further away, pale, shaken, looking at her mother as if seeing her for the first time. Gerald didn't lift his eyes, sat hunched, aged 10 years in that hour. His solicitor was muttering something to him in a low voice. The door opened. All rise. Court is in session. Peterson returned to his seat, unfolded the decision sheet. In the case of the dissolution of marriage between Gerald Smith and Victoria Smith, the court ruled. He paused. The marriage is dissolved. Another pause. The deed of gift for the flat at, Gerald flinched, is declared invalid on the grounds of the spouse's forged signature. The sham transaction for the arrangement of the country house in the name of Miss Hughes is declared invalid. The said property is to be included in the jointly acquired assets. Peterson turned the page. Considering the respondent's initial contribution to the creation of the family business, as well as the revealed violations in asset stripping, the court rules 70% of the jointly acquired property shall be transferred to Victoria Smith, 30% to Gerald Smith. He put down the papers. Additionally, materials on possible tax evasion are to be sent to the relevant authorities for investigation. Materials on signature forgery, to the Serious Fraud Office. Peterson looked at the room. The decision may be appealed within 30 days. The hearing is adjourned. He stood up, headed for the exit. At the door, he stopped, turned around. Victoria Davies, he said quietly. You once told me, look at the facts, not the titles. I still work that way. And he left. Victoria remained seated. People moved around her, voices sounded, but she heard nothing. It was over. 25 years were over. Arthur hugged her. Mum, we won. Yes, she smiled. We won. Eleanor approached cautiously. Her eyes were red from tears. Mum, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. You are so... I was always like this, Eleanor. I just forgot. Now I remember. Her daughter hugged her tightly, desperately, like in childhood when she woke from nightmares. Forgive me, Mum. Please forgive me. I forgive you. I forgave you long ago. At the exit of the courtroom, Gerald was waiting for them. He stood by the wall, hunched, aged. Next to him, his solicitor with a folder of papers. Victoria. Her husband's voice was hoarse. I'll appeal. That's your right. Do you understand what you've done? You've destroyed everything. Victoria looked at the man she had lived with for a quarter of a century, at that face she had once loved, at those hands that had once embraced her. No, Gerald, she said calmly. You destroyed it 25 years ago, when you decided I was nobody, when you allowed your mother to humiliate me every day, when you took a mistress and transferred our house to her. I merely picked up the pieces. But how could you? After everything I did for you? What did you do for me? She raised an eyebrow. Controlled every penny, called me useless, said I was needed by no one. Gerald opened his mouth, but she didn't let him speak. You thought you married a gray mouse, an empty shell that could be used and discarded. But you were wrong, Gerald. You married a detective, a person who knows how to find the truth. And now the truth is out. She walked past him, without looking back. Arthur and Eleanor followed her. At the exit of the courthouse, Victoria stopped, looked at the sky. Gray, low, an ordinary autumn day, but for her, it was the first day of a new life. A year passed. Victoria sat in her office, small but cozy. On the wall, 2 photographs, an old one, a young woman in a detective's uniform. A new one, the same woman, but with gray hair and the same sharp gaze. Phoenix Legal Consultations, helping women with divorce and property division. The idea came a month after the trial, when an acquaintance approached Victoria. Her story had spread through the town, and women in similar situations began to seek out the contact of the wife who had won. "I have nowhere to go," they would say. "My husband took everything, says, sign the papers and be free. But where will I go?" Victoria knew that fear, remembered it, and decided no one else would feel the way she had for 25 years. In 1 year, 117 women passed through the consultation. 43 of them won their cases. The rest received help, advice, support. Arthur worked alongside her, handling the technical side, databases, information retrieval, document analysis. "Mum," he peeked into the office, "a visitor for you. Says it's urgent. Let her in." A woman in her 40s, frightened eyes, hands nervously clasped. "Victoria Davies, I was advised to come to you. My husband, he wants a divorce. Says I'll get nothing. That I'm nobody and have no chance." Victoria stood up, approached the visitor, took her hand. "Sit down, tell me, and remember the main thing, you are not nobody. You are a person, and you have rights." The woman sobbed. "But he has solicitors, connections. He has connections. You have the truth, and the truth always wins. Not immediately, not easily, but it wins." She returned to her desk. "Let's start from the beginning. What's your name?" In the evening, Eleanor came for dinner. It had become a tradition. Every Saturday, the three of them. "Mum, did you hear?" Her daughter helped set the table. "Dad tried to appeal the decision. Lost again, I heard. His business is being investigated by the tax authorities. They found violations. Karina dumped him as soon as the money ran out." Victoria arranged the plates. "I don't care, Eleanor. Really, how can you not care? Because he's no longer part of my life. What happens to him is his business." Eleanor fell silent, then said quietly, "You've changed, Mum. So much." "No, I've returned to who I always was." Arthur brought salad from the kitchen. "What are you two whispering about?" "About changes," Victoria replied. "Sit down and eat." They sat, the mother and her children, for the first time in many years, like a real family. Late in the evening, after the children had left, Victoria was alone. She sat by the window in her flat, the very one her parents had owned, which she had regained through court. High ceilings, old parquet flooring, a view of the evening city. On the table, a cup of tea, in her hands, her old service ID, Detective Inspector Victoria Davies. She looked at the faded photograph, at the young woman with the sharp gaze. 25 years ago, that woman had disappeared, dissolved into the role of wife, mother, homemaker, allowed herself to be broken, day by day, word by word, but she hadn't died. She had waited for the moment when she could return. And she had returned. Victoria placed the ID on the table, looked out the window at the city lights, at the stars above the rooftops. For 25 years, she had been a stranger's shadow, lived a borrowed life, believed others' words about herself. Now, she was herself again. And this was only the beginning.